What's up guys, welcome back to the vlog. So a month ago I was riding my motorcycle, my 1979 KZ440. It was great, life was great, the bike ran beautifully. So I spent a whole day riding it, and then I parked it, and then the morning after I went to fire it up, and it fired up, but quite weakly. The engine was turning over. It was like dee 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 dee, and then nothing. When the lights turn on and everything, indicators are on, headlights on, brake light works, horn works. When I press the starter button, now it just clicks, and engine no longer turns over. This was a month ago, and it's still like that. So a month ago, I knew nothing about starter motors and the whole starter circuit of a classic bike. And now I know a few things. I know a bit more about it. So this video is going to be a series of tests that I went through so that I could systematically and methodically isolate where the issue is. Now, if you have an old bike and you are looking to learn more about motorcycle wiring and the starter circuit, this video is going to be right up your alley. If you don't have an old bike and if you're not interested in this at all, it's probably going to be a pretty dry one. So just letting you know now, feel free to click off this video right now. But before you do that, please leave a like and a comment below, because that really helps me out. Okay, so the starter motor circuit of a old classic bike is actually quite simple. There's not that many moving parts to it. Now, before we get into this, I just want to do a quick shout out to another YouTuber, White Dog Garage. He made a really good video on this, and basically what I've learnt about my bike, I owe a lot of that due to his video. So after this video, make sure you look him up. I'll put a link down in the description for his starter motor video. So let's draw out the starter motor circuit of an old bike. Now, as I said, there's not too much going on in it. All right, so this is basically it. It's a really simplified diagram, but basically you've got your battery. The battery, one side is grounded to the frame. The other side, the negative side, goes into your starter relay, okay? A wire comes out of your starter relay and goes into your starter motor. And then the starter motor basically connects into your engine. This is your engine, where this gear turns a bigger gear, and it just sort of turns the engine around. And that's how a starter motor works. From the relay, you have a wire that comes down. In my case, it goes into a fuse box. So it goes into your fuse box, goes through a fuse, and then it comes out into your switch. This is the throttle. This is located on the handlebar, and this is the switch which activates everything. So now let's have a look at this. I'm just gonna go right off the bat and let you guys know that if you are experiencing a similar situation as me, most likely you have a blown fuse, bad wiring, or your battery's crap. Like, it's one of those three 95% of the time. So let's start off with those. Let's just tick off the most obvious things going on. So as I said, I can turn the key on, I can hit the switch, and then I hear a click in the relay. This tells me already that my switch is okay. Yeah, because if my switch was broken or something was happening here, I wouldn't be getting a click here. Basically, what is happening with a relay is that you can look at a relay. Basically, it's like this. This is what a relay does. When electric current goes through it, it actuates a magnet and it goes click. And this allows electricity to bridge a gap in very simple terms. So whenever you hit the starter switch, it closes the 2 points inside of the starter relay. Okay, so whenever I press the switch, this closes, and then the current from the battery can go through the relay and go straight to the starter motor. So obviously I can turn the key, I can hit the switch, and I'm getting a reaction from here. So that already tells me that the starter switch is fine, the fuse box is fine, and all this wiring here is basically fine. Now, if you hit your starter switch and you're not getting any reaction, then that means it's a pretty good sign that you have something wrong with your starter switch, the wires, or your fuse box. So here is how you test it out. And first of all, just check your fuses. What a fuse is it's a weak point in a circuit. So a certain amount of amperage should be running through your circuit. If for whatever reason your circuit gets overloaded and the amperage spikes up, because the fuse is there, it's designed to fail first. So the fuse blows and that cuts the circuit, and it saves all of your other parts of your motorcycle, which are a lot more expensive to replace. So take a look at your fuse box, see if they're blown. It's pretty obvious when they are blown because it's all burnt. In my case, my fuse box has 3 fuses. I think it's one 20 amp fuse and 2 10 amp fuses. The 10 amp fuses are for the front lights and the rear lights, and then the 20 amp fuse is for the whole starter system, the middle of the bike. In order to test to see if the fuse is okay, you just need one of these, just a multimeter, and you're going to be doing something called a continuity test. What continuity does, or what it tests, is it just tests the ability for a current to go from one end to the other end. Super simple. Obviously, if the fuse is blown, then the current shouldn't be able to run through it. So on your multimeter, you just set it to continuity, which is this, hopefully you can see it, which is this little icon here. And the number is set at 1. And most multimeters will have a little speaker in it, and so it will just do a little beep to show if there's continuity. So I'll just do it now on my screwdriver. So 1 end here. Let's see if I can put this here so you can see what the number is. So 1 end here, and then 1 end here. So do you hear that beep? There. So what you're aiming for with continuity is anything under 0.05. This one's jumping all over the place, but that's basically how you do it. So that's how you test continuity, super easy. You can use this to test all your fuses to make sure that you can get current through it. You can also go ahead and test all of your wires. So this wire here, basically you test 1 end here, 1 end here to see if you got continuity, 1 end here, 1 end here to see if you get continuity. And look, that's basically it. Through a simple continuity test and common sense, you can rule out the switch, you can rule out your fuse box, you can rule out these wires over here. Pretty simple. I didn't have to do this because, as I said before, when I pressed the switch, I had a reaction at my relay. So that just told me that the relay was getting signal. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, second of all, the battery. Look, guys, if anything goes wrong with your bike, you either have no petrol or your battery's shit. Oftentimes it's as simple as that. So test your battery. The motorcycle batteries are 12 volt. A battery, I'm going to say, would need at least 11 volts to get some sort of reaction in the starter motor. And even if the battery is not strong enough, it should have some juice in it to at the very least turn the starter motor, you know? In any case, check your battery, check for voltage. A good battery should be well and above 12.5 volts. I think a fully charged battery should be like 13.4 volts or something like that. But also, just because your battery has voltage doesn't mean that it is good. So what you need to do, if you really want to make sure that your battery is good, take it to a battery shop. In most cases, it's free for them to do a load test. And yeah, just make sure that you've got a good battery. I did that. I took my battery to a battery shop. It was fine. I was actually annoyed because I was hoping that I could just replace the battery, but they did a load test, they tested the voltage, it was perfectly fine. So, simple test, we know that the battery is fine. So we know it's not the switch, we know it's not the fuse box or this entire circuit here, we know it's not the battery. Another thing that could go wrong is bad ground. So in most cases, or certainly in my case, the battery is grounded through the motorcycle frame. And so what you want to do is you want to check the ends of each of your cables. So that would be here, here, and just go ahead and check all of the cables actually, here, 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 and here. Just check that all the terminals are nice and clean. They're not rusty or grimy or covered in dirt. I've heard many stories of a motorcycle not working and then you just give the wires a bit of a jostle and then it works. So bad ground is a thing. Super easy to fix that. Just get some sandpaper and just polish the terminals to make sure that you've got good ground. I did that. And then I also did a continuity test on each wire. So that ruled that out, and ruled that out. So all that we have left is the starter relay and the starter motor. Starter relay is like 12 bucks off eBay. Starter motor can be up to $600 on eBay. So let's pray that it's the starter relay. So as I said before, all a starter relay does is when you actuate it, it closes it off. So you can think of it as like a drawbridge to a castle. It engages a magnet and it closes it off. That's the click. So when I press the power button, I hear that click, 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 click. Now, just because you hear a click in your starter relay doesn't mean that it's necessarily all good, because the magnet might be actuated, but the two terminals might be corroded or just old. So, and when I say the two terminals, I mean this and that. Testing a starter relay is actually quite simple. Hopefully I can just demonstrate it on this table without actually going out. But what you want to do is just test for voltage. And this is real, like, pretty basic knowledge of how to use a multimeter. But in saying that, a month ago, I didn't even know how to use this. So with a multimeter, you set it to volts. I'm just going to set mine to 20, which is right there. Hopefully you can see that. And so I'll show you what you can expect from this test. Okay, how does this work? So if we go from positive to negative on the battery, it should show up as, let's just say this is 12 volts, okay? So positive to negative, it should show up as 12 volts. Now, by logic, since there's a circuit here and this cable works, if I go from positive to negative, not from here, but to here on the relay, it should also be 12 volts, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if I go from positive and I put my negative side on this point here, you'll get 0, right? But if you hook this up and then you actuate the relay, remember the relay is like a drawbridge. So turn on the key, hit the switch, the drawbridge closes. When you press the starter switch, it closes this bridge and you should be able to get a current to go through. So what you do is you test your voltage from the positive side of your battery to this side of the relay, and hopefully you should get some sort of current or some sort of voltage. If it's 0, if you're not getting anything, then you know that even though this is closing, the terminals inside suck, so you have to replace this. In my case, I did this test. There was 12 volts here, 12 volts here, 12 volts here. Then I took off this cable here, which went to the starter motor, hit the switch, 12 volts again. So that meant the relay was all fine. So we know it's not the fuse box, we know it's not the starter switch, we know it's not the battery, we know it's not the grounds, we know it's not the wiring. We've just tested for voltage through all the cables. We now know that it's not the starter relay. That means it has to be the starter motor. Yikes, that's the scary one. So, do you know how the past 2 videos I uploaded was me taking off a side cover and reinstalling the starter motor? I basically had to redo that. If you are at this stage and if you wanted to test the starter motor, what you can do is directly connect your battery to the starter motor, okay? So what that's going to look like, and this might just mess up my whole drawing, but the starter motor has a terminal here for your negative. And then in my case, my starter motor just gets grounded through the engine. So there's no ground, but your starter motor, let's just say your starter motor might have a ground terminal, okay? So what you can actually do is you disconnect your battery and you connect it straight to the starter motor. So that means, let's just say that this is still grounded, and then your negative side, you're just gonna bypass everything and go straight there. In most cases, your starter motor should turn, and if it does, then you know your starter motor is good, and then the problem is everywhere in between. I couldn't do that, so I tried to basically jump start my starter motor while it was inside the bike. It didn't work. I took the starter motor out of the bike, tried to jump start it, and it did work. So I was like, oh, okay, that's a bit weird. Maybe I'm thinking maybe the battery isn't strong enough. Maybe it's not powerful enough. But I took the battery to a shop and I know that it's strong enough. So here I am just sort of scratching my head. So I had to take the starter motor out again. And we're going to head out now and I'll show you what I found. All right, guys. So this is my old starter motor. And this is my new starter motor. Did I mention that I've already replaced my starter motor last year? Did I also mention that this cost me $700? So look, at this point, my starter motor's stuffed up. I don't know why. And I was very skeptical because it's a new starter motor. It shouldn't have failed. And I think because I thought I had a new starter motor, it couldn't be that. I think that's why this process took a little bit longer than usual, because I just had like confirmation bias. I was like, nah, no way, no way. Anyways, let me show you what I found. I'll open up my old starter motor first, just so I can show you the insides of a starter motor. And also, before I open it, this is what I meant. So a gear goes here, this inserts straight into the engine, and then this is where the negative terminal is, so the battery will go into connect here, and then these starter motors, they just ground straight to the engine frame or the engine body, so there's no ground terminal in this. So in order to jump start it, you get the negative side, clip it to this, and then the ground, you just put it on any metal part of the starter motor and it should rev right up. I won't take this fully apart because it's a pain in the ass to put it back together, but I just want to show you something. So this is the brush motor, or the brushes of a starter motor. And I'll just quickly show you what this does. So on this particular starter motor, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 magnets which are touching this coil on the inside, okay? Now, 2 of these magnets, these 2 are negative and these 2 are positive, right? And so what happens is when current or electricity is passed through the starter motor, then these magnets get energized and then it forces this to turn, which turns, I don't know if I can turn it now, basically turns this around. So this whole thing rotates. At least I think so. Still, to this point, I don't really know how magnets work. So I've just undone one clip and I've taken one of the brushes out. The brush is basically just a magnet. This is what normally fails on a starter motor. And so you can actually get starter motor repair kits for these things, and they're not too expensive. Like you can just replace these, and what you do is you weld them back on, then you put them back into their slot, and then this clip goes up and over again to force it back in. So look, this is the old starter motor, and let me just remind you, 1979 Kawasaki, so it's an old bike. That's what the old one looks like. Let me show you what the new one looks like. So I bought this starter motor maybe early last year, and it's a little bit different. The old one has 4 brushes, the new one has 2 brushes, but that's besides the point. This is what the new brush looks like. And I'll just zoom in here. You see how corroded and rusted it is? When I first took it out, these brushes couldn't move at all. I had to use quite a bit of force to free it up, and you can see there's a bit of corrosion there. This one is completely fused, and to the point where I tried to move it and I actually broke the fiber glass or whatever, the mounting plate, which is fine because the whole thing's basically screwed up. But I don't know, for a starter motor that is a year old, I've never seen this happen, and I'm not exactly sure what it could be. So I'm curious. So I'll upload a photo of what it looked like before I tampered with it. It was actually quite gnarly. There was a lot of I don't know if this is rust or corrosion. I'm not sure what happened. So if you guys have any ideas, please comment below. What do you reckon happened? Did it like short circuit or something? Is there, I don't know why the magnets or the brushes are like completely fused to this slot. I can't move this at all. But as soon as I opened it, I was like, yep, okay, that's the problem. So we basically have to replace the brushes of the new starter motor. That's actually not too bad. The reason why I had to get a new starter motor in the first place was because for the old Kawasaki's from the 70s and the early 80s, they were notorious for breaking. And how they broke was I don't want to take this apart, but within the cylinder, basically the cylinder is lined with a bunch of magnets, and on the old starter motors, those magnets are held to the cylinder by glue. Now, over time, through like riding in the summer and in winter, and it's just constantly vibrating when you're riding, the glue gets really brittle and it dries up and it cracks, and then the magnet tends to slip off or fall off or gets loose. And mind you, while you're starting the bike, this central cylinder in the middle is like spinning really fast. So what happens is if the magnet gets loose, it just gets ground up and it goes, which is exactly what happened to this. So when I first opened this up, it was a mess. There was like shards of magnets everywhere. And basically when that happens, you have to replace the whole damn unit. The newer starter motor which I got, this is from Rick's Starter Motors or Rick's Power Sports. The magnet is, I think it's welded, or it's permanently fixed to the starter motor cylinder. So apparently that prevents the magnets from ever slipping and getting crushed. But as I said, we need to replace that starter brush, which actually isn't too bad. So let's head back in. I hate working with starter motors because my fingers always get really dirty. So as I said, we don't need to get a whole new starter motor, thankfully. We just need to replace the brushes. And on eBay, I actually found quite a few replacement kits. And look, a starter motor is quite simple in what it does. And most motorcycles, at least I hope, and as what I've been told, is that most motorcycles just run a very similar starter motor setup. So a replacement brush kit is more or less universal. So what I found on eBay was, and so this is what I bought, a Rick starter motor for the KZ440. This one is US $251, which is like just under 400 Australian dollars, and you have to pay for shipping. That's what I had to do, but I actually found a bunch of other starter motor brushes. This one was $33. And this is the one I ended up getting. It was like 15 bucks, so super cheap. And it looks more or less the same. So that's what I've done. I've placed an order for that. It should come in a few days, so that will be the next episode. What you can also do is you can just place an order for these guys, which are just the brushes. So as I said, in most cases, a starter motor does wear down. It is a serviceable part, and those brushes that are in contact with that thing in the middle that rotates, they tend to wear down. And so what you can do is you can just buy these replacement brushes, and what you have to do is just solder them on and just replace it. So fairly straightforward. It's actually funny because these starter motor brushes is $25, but you could get a whole new brush for $15. So if I was servicing my starter motor, I'll just buy a new brush. Anyways, that's it. That was my method, the method to my madness. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you guys learned something. The main takeaway of this episode is just that if you can draw out your circuit and label each part of it and just understand how different parts of the bike works, then you can just apply logic and just systematically and methodically figure out which part is broken. My process was a bit all over the shop, again, because this is a new starter motor. I was like, there's no way it's going to be that. So I went quite roundabout, but yeah, through just trial and error and just using a multimeter, I knew that it wasn't the starter switch. I knew it wasn't any of the wires or grounding. I knew it wasn't the fuse box. I knew it wasn't the battery. I knew it wasn't the starter solenoid or the starter relay. And so narrowed it down to the starter motor itself, which look, I'm just glad that I found a result. So I've placed an order for this. It should come in a few days. And once it comes in, I'll make another video of me installing it, and hopefully the bike works. that's it for today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. You enjoyed this vlog. Thanks so much for watching. Please leave a like, a comment, and if you enjoyed this content, subscribe and hit that bell notification so you can know when my next videos are uploaded. That's it, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Peace out. Dit 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 dit.